Somewhere beyond the curtain of your current awareness, in a version of the world you'll never quite see, your story is already ended. Not in metaphor, but in timeline, one where the path you're on split, silent and unseen, and you didn't make it through. Maybe it was a missed step on a rain-slicked street. Maybe an illness bloomed too fast. Maybe it was something as subtle as not choosing to speak when it mattered. In that parallel current, your breath stopped, the narrative unraveled. But here you are, still reading, still thinking, still living. So why do you sometimes feel the echo of something unfinished? Why does the air occasionally vibrate with the sense that something was lost, but not here? This is not simply a story of what if. This is a story about the echo left behind when a soul dies in one dimension and migrates quietly into another, a whisper of memory that never belonged to this version of your life, yet lingers like a shadow without a body. In this very moment, the fact that you are alive, aware, conscious, scanning these lines, is proof that you're living in a second chance you don't remember being given. You're walking a road built on the ashes of one that collapsed behind the veil. You might call it fate, you might call it quantum branching, you might call it divine intervention, but no matter the label, the result is the same. Your survival here may be a gift, but it came with a message, and the message, it's not written in ink or carved in stone. It's coded into your recurring dreams, the inexplicable synchronicities that pull you toward places or people that feel uncannily familiar. It's in the sudden tears you can't explain, the chills on your skin when someone says something you swear you've heard before. It's in the dreams that feel too real, the people you recognize without knowing why, and that deep, aching intuition that you're meant for something more because you are. Time, as you know it, is not a straight arrow but a spiraling web of possibilities, each thread vibrating with potential outcomes. Every choice you make collapses some threads while illuminating others. Yet the versions you don't live don't vanish, they echo. And the one where you died, it echoes most of all. There is a theory, unproven but intimately felt, that consciousness is not confined to a single line of time. When the body dies in one timeline, the awareness may shift, like a river carving a new channel, into a reality where death did not yet occur. This isn't fantasy. It's whispered in the thought experiments of physicists and entangled in the sacred teachings of mystics. Indigenous oral traditions speak of dream time, where the soul travels across parallel worlds. Buddhist teachings imply that death and rebirth can happen without a gap. And modern science, with all its skepticism, still can't close the door on the multiverse. You've heard people say, that was a close call, a brush with death, a lucky break. But what if it wasn't luck? What if your survival here wasn't just fortune, but a rerouting of destiny? What if the deepest parts of your intuition are not warnings of future danger, but fragments of past ones from another timeline, trying to remind you why you're still here? This message, then, is not a warning, but a remembering. You've already died somewhere. This right now is what was salvaged, and with it comes a subtle duty, as if the version of you that didn't make it left behind an inheritance, a purpose not yet fulfilled, a lesson not yet lived, a truth not yet spoken. You're not starting from scratch. You're continuing from a fracture, a timeline that bled into this one. And so we begin to unravel it. In the sections ahead, we'll explore what this message might mean, what it asks of you, and how to interpret its symbols. We'll look into the architecture of timelines, the shape of meaning across dimensions, and how symbolic stories throughout history have quietly hinted at this truth. But for now, sit with this thought. The life you are living might not be your first chance. It may be your echoing continuation, your mysterious second act. And in this act, there is a message still glowing with quiet urgency, waiting to be uncovered, To understand the message left behind by a self that no longer exists in this timeline, one must begin by loosening the grip of linearity. The notion that life unfolds in a single forward-moving thread is comforting, but it's not complete. Time is less like a road and more like an ocean, layered, fluid, multi-directional. Each moment is a wave, intersecting with others, sometimes collapsing into alternate versions of reality without our conscious awareness. In this ocean of timelines, the version of you reading this is simply one of countless variations, drifting atop possibility. The central theme is this: the death you avoided is not gone. It has transformed into meaning. Your presence here now is not arbitrary. It is intentionality made manifest. Somewhere, another version of you failed to continue. But here, breath moves through your lungs, thought dances through your neurons. The heart pumps not merely to sustain, but to remember. What does it remember? It remembers the fork, the branching that happened in silence. The core concept to grasp is that this isn't about avoiding death, it's about absorbing its message. The death in the alternate timeline wasn't an ending, it was a punctuation mark, a comma perhaps, where you expected a period. And so you find yourself in this reality with a deep sense of urgency you can't explain. A vague, unshakable knowing that something must be done, said changed. You were not merely spared, you were resent, reseeded into this dimension, with the unspoken assignment to complete what that version of you could not. It's no coincidence that your deepest intuitions often come clothed in metaphor. They don't speak in spreadsheets or roadmaps, but in symbols, dreams, déjà vu, sudden emotion. These are not malfunctions of the mind. They are translations of a non-linear truth, trying to speak a linear language. And when you interpret them carefully, you begin to see the architecture beneath your life, signs embedded in the chaos, lessons disguised as chance, echoes masquerading as intuition. This idea of being haunted by a life that ended doesn't emerge from superstition, but from the very structure of consciousness. If consciousness is indeed fundamental, as many philosophers and physicists are beginning to accept, then it cannot be limited by the collapse of one physical form. It seeks continuity, and that continuity across timelines carries a moral weight. You are not just surviving, you are living on behalf of the version of you that didn't. That burden, strange as it seems, is what imbues your existence with a sacred charge. Another theme rising through the layers is the illusion of separateness. In this framework, timelines are not divided like lanes on a highway. They bleed, overlap, whisper to one another. You can feel it when you stand in a place you've never been and sense déjà vu. You can sense it when you meet someone for the first time and instantly feel a bond. These moments are not glitches. They are messages, shards of a timeline that once was, trying to inform the one that now is. That which you call coincidence may be the residue of another self's unfulfilled trajectory surfacing in your path, asking to be acknowledged, healed, completed. This leads us to another vital concept: karmic continuity without memory. Imagine karma not as cosmic punishment or reward, but as a record of unresolved resonance. The life you didn't live left behind a vibration, like an unfinished chord. It hums through you now, not with clarity, but with compulsion. That dream that won't let go, that pull toward a purpose you haven't yet defined, the grief you feel without cause. These are not random burdens, they are inheritances, like unfinished symphonies of previous selves, asking you to complete the music in this version of your life. And what of fear? The fear of death, failure, irrelevance. In this narrative, fear becomes not the enemy, but the teacher. Because if you've already died once, what is there left to lose? The life you now live is in a way bonus time. It's post-credits, a gift you didn't know you were given. When seen through this lens, fear shrinks. not because it disappears, but because it is recast. It's no longer the edge of the cliff, but the echo of a fall you already survived. What remains is only the echo, and echoes cannot harm you. This is the threshold where spirituality meets science, where mysticism overlaps with metaphysics. It's where quantum immortality nods at reincarnation, and where ancient teachings start to sound like physics lectures in poetic disguise. It is not merely a philosophical indulgence, it's a roadmap for a deeper kind of living. You're not here to just exist, you're here to decipher, to decode the signals sent across the rupture, to answer the question hidden in the silence of another life's ending, to ask, not why me, but what now? There is an ancient tale that never quite made it into books, because it isn't told aloud, only remembered in fragments by those who've stood at the edge of something they couldn't name. It's the story of a soul who died before its time, not because it was weak or careless, but because that version of the story reached a precipice it could not cross. And just as the final breath slipped away, something rare happened. The soul refused to dissolve. It turned instead toward the spiral, the cosmic weave of alternate lives, and slipped quietly into another version of the self, still warm, still unfinished. That soul was yours. This isn't a parable designed to comfort. It's a symbolic mirror held up to the strange and often unnoticed patterns in your life. The near misses, the impossible luck, the dreams that feel too detailed to be dreams. These aren't ornaments of imagination. They are the smoke trails of a truth too vast for language. In cultures long vanished, the shamans spoke of the echo self, a spiritual twin who walks beside you, made of the lives you almost lived. The echo self is a guardian, but also a messenger, eternally whispering what was missed, what remains, what must now be heard. To walk through this landscape of symbolic memory is to step into the language of myth. Myth, after all, is not a lie. It's a deeper kind of truth, wearing the costume of story. And within this myth, you are both the hero and the ghost. Let's enter the first symbol, the silent watcher. This figure appears in many traditions, a guardian angel, a shadow figure, an ancestral presence. But beneath all interpretations, it represents the part of you that remembers what this version forgets. It is the witness from the other side of the timeline, the one who saw your death and carried the message across. You've glimpsed this figure in dreams, in moments of unexplainable calm during chaos, in the presence you feel when no one is in the room. The silent watcher is not external. It is the last breath of your previous self, given form, waiting for you to ask, what did I miss? Next comes the recurring door. Have you ever noticed a pattern that keeps repeating? Relationships that end the same way, choices that circle back, fears that resurface in new disguises. These are not failures, they are keys, turning again and again in the same lock, waiting for you to remember how to open the door. That door does not lead backward, it leads inward, to the place where the timeline forked and the message was born. Each time you revisit the pattern, you are inching closer to the point of understanding that allows the loop to break. The door appears again and again not to trap you, but to invite you to finish the sentence your other self never could. And then there is the stranger who knows your name. In folklore, these are often messengers, the mysterious figures who appear to offer guidance or disruption. But in your life, they may appear as a teacher who says the exact phrase your soul needed, a child who stares too deeply, a song on the radio that feels like it was written for you by someone who remembers a version of you that no longer exists. These strangers are not coincidence. They are carriers, living vessels of the message left behind. They may never know the role they play, but your soul does. You feel it like a tremor in the chest. This moment is meant for me. One of the most profound symbols in this narrative is the scar that isn't there. It refers to the grief you carry without origin, the fear of drowning, though you've never been in deep water, the sudden panic when the wind shifts just right, These phantom pains, these emotional bruises with no visible cause, they belong to the self that died. Just as the body can retain cellular memory, the spirit retains experiential memory across timelines, and sometimes it bleeds through, not to haunt, but to remind you, you've been here before, even if not exactly like this. Tao, consider the most hidden of them all, the unfinished sentence. We all carry one. It lingers in our thoughts, like a splinter under the skin. Maybe it's a dream we keep postponing, a truth we are afraid to speak, a version of ourselves we hide from others, even when we ache to reveal it. This unfinished sentence is sacred. It is the very heart of the message left behind. It is not just a metaphorical purpose, it is the continuation of a story interrupted by death. To finally speak it, not just in words but in choices, is to fulfill the inheritance of your alternate self. All these symbols, though poetic, point toward something startlingly concrete. Your life is not just yours, it is also the continuation of a life that ended. And if you listen closely to the symbols, to the echoes, to the dreams and strange urgencies, you will begin to decipher the message embedded in your being. You are not just living, you are remembering, you are fulfilling, you are completing. So what does it mean to live with the knowledge that your current existence may be an echo of survival, that in some unseen reality you've already ended, and yet you're here not by chance, but by selection? At first, such a realization may seem ethereal, the stuff of dreams and speculative fiction, but like all truths wrapped in myth, its power is in how it reshapes the way we walk through the everyday. What was once mundane becomes coded, the ordinary gleams with hidden depth, and most importantly, your choices stop being small, they begin to echo. One of the most practical shifts comes in the realm of attention. When you begin to sense your life as part of a larger, layered existence, one that is informed by other versions of yourself, your awareness becomes sharper. That uncanny moment when a stranger says something that jolts you to attention, or when you feel a sudden resistance to a decision that makes sense on paper. These become clues, not nuisances or glitches in your logic, but signals from the deeper structure of your being. Listening to them doesn't make you superstitious, it makes you aligned. The message left behind by your other self may never arrive as a letter or dream you can fully remember, but its essence is already being integrated through your body's intuition, your heart's longings, your discomforts, your compulsions. Integration begins by no longer dismissing these inner signals as irrational. It means treating synchronicity not as a curiosity, but as a language. When a song follows you, when the same word appears 3 times in a day, when the dream loops again with sharper detail, these are not mistakes. They are the message trying to pierce through the veil of forgetfulness. Integration means tuning in again and again until meaning begins to crystallize. There's also a shift in how we interpret failure. In this expanded view, failure loses its sting, not because it disappears, but because it is recontextualized. When you've already died once, the moments that seem like endings in this life become smaller, less definitive. A failed relationship, a collapsed career, a dream deferred. They are not tombstones, they are redirects. The failed path in one timeline became the entry point to this one. So the next time something collapses, ask yourself not, why did I lose this? But what deeper current is redirecting me? Failure then becomes an encoded message, a cipher, and your task is not to resist it, but to translate it. This framework also restores a sense of sacred responsibility. When you see your existence as borrowed breath from another version of yourself, you begin to take your choices more seriously, not out of guilt, but out of reverence. You begin to ask, what would the other me give anything to have another shot at? You stop treating your days like disposable wrappers and begin to treat them like manuscripts, unfinished, yes, but already profound. Relationships change too. That sudden sense of recognition you feel with some people, That's not coincidence. It might be that you knew them in the life that ended. Maybe they played a different role, a friend, a rival, a sibling, and your soul remembers. The tension or closeness you feel without reason is memory without story. To integrate this isn't to obsess over past lives or alternate timelines, but to honor what is with greater care. If someone feels significant, they are. If a goodbye hurts more than it should, it's because somewhere, some version of you never got to say it. And so you feel it now, more deeply, more urgently. From a real-world lens, this awareness can also soften your fear of mortality. Death stops being the singular antagonist of existence. If consciousness continues, if timelines echo, then death becomes a crossing, not an erasure. And with that understanding comes courage. Not recklessness, but freedom. The freedom to say the thing you've been silencing. The freedom to walk away from the life that no longer feels like yours. The freedom to dream again, even if you failed before, especially if you failed before. Even your career, your creative output, your contribution to the world shifts in meaning. If you believe you are here to complete something left undone by another you, then your work becomes more than a pursuit of success. It becomes an offering. That book you keep postponing, that conversation you haven't had, that project you nearly began but then abandoned out of fear, they might be the very sentence the other you never got to finish. You are not starting from scratch. You are continuing a story mid-sentence. You might wonder, if the other self died, then why didn't they finish it? The answer is humbling. Perhaps they ran out of time, but you haven't. You are the time, you are the breath, the continuation, the restoration. To live with this knowledge is not to be burdened, it is to be awakened. So how do you begin? Not by seeking perfect answers, but by becoming fluent in your own inner symbolism, by treating each day as a conversation with something deeper, by listening, by choosing with care, by loving more fully, and most of all, by living as if your life is both a miracle and a message, because it is. If you've followed this far, past the veil of timelines, through the metaphors and memories that don't quite belong to this version of you, then you're already beginning to awaken, not to a fantasy, but to a deeper fidelity to your own existence. The concept that you've already died somewhere else, in another thread of reality, is not meant to disturb, it is meant to illuminate, to shatter the illusion that life is random or disposable, to remind you that this, right now, is something sacred, retrieved, salvaged. Imagine this, a version of you reached the end, the story paused, but before the final page closed, something powerful stirred. A choice was made, not by the mind, but by the soul. That choice said, not yet. And in that moment, like a breath held beneath water finally breaking through the surface, you emerged here, in this branch, in this body, in this timeline. That version of you did not vanish. It left something behind, a frequency, a pulse, a message. And that message is not written in some distant text or lost scripture. It is in you. It is you. It lives in the questions that won't leave you alone, in the ache that follows certain dreams, in the purpose you try to ignore, but keeps returning with louder knocks. It moves through your intuition, like wind through tall grass, subtle but undeniable. It's the reason you sometimes feel as though you're walking through someone else's story, or standing in a life that you didn't quite plan, but somehow feels destined. The message doesn't say become someone else. It doesn't demand perfection, nor urgency in the traditional sense. It asks only one thing: wake up to your significance. Live with the presence and weight of someone who already knows how easily this could have been lost. Live as though your time is not a right, but a second chance paid for in some unseen currency. This message is a call to remember yourself back into wholeness. Remember that you are not here by chance. Remember that your scars, seen and unseen, are inheritance marks. Remember that your fear is often just love wearing an old disguise. And remember, above all, that this life, this thread of possibility, is not merely a continuation, it is a convergence. A place where the unfinished lines of previous versions, previous dreams, previous heartbreaks, all meet for a final retelling. There is power in that. Quiet, sacred power. So what now? Now, you live like someone who's been chosen to complete a story. You speak what the other version of you didn't get to say. You love as though love is both fragile and infinite. You move toward your calling not because it's easy, but because you feel, deep in the marrow, that this is what you came back for. The world around you will still be noisy, full of distractions, opinions, obligations. But beneath all of that is a stillness. And in that stillness, the message continues to hum. It says, you are the one who returned. You are the echo made flesh. You are the message, and you are the messenger. Live accordingly, because the truth is not just that you've already died somewhere. The truth is you chose to come back, and that changes everything.